Welcome to our biggest panel of this session. My name is Gigi Johnson, and I'm glad to be here for our Building Back Better student and alumni edition, along with my colleague and cohort in crime, Storm Glore. I'm at UCLA's Herb Alpert School. Storm, you want to self-introduce?
Sure. Well, and hello, Gigi, and thank you, Mia, for letting us bring our entourage here today. I am Storm Glore from CU Denver in the College of Arts and Media.
And we had this crazy, fabulous idea that got larger as we kept going. That we've gone through such gigantic changes in the industry this year, but also in the way we teach and everyone having to go online, that we have a double ability coming back because we have the ability to both build back better in terms of our curriculum, but also build back better in terms of delivering to a changing music industry. So who better to help us figure out how to build back better than people who are living through this right now? So for a lot of these folks, this is one of their first time speaking in their professional roles. And in some of these folks are already old hats. So we're going to be taking them around the horn here. Anything else we need to say in our intro before we start around the horn, Storm?
I think that's it, Gigi. And yeah, in the interest of time, let's start meeting these fine folks who we have here with us today.
So we're going to go around the horn. They're going to introduce themselves for a minute or two or three, but also answer the question, how did my undergraduate studies prepare me for the music business, including this year's crazy changes? And we will start out with Amanda.
Hi. Thanks for having me today. My name's Amanda. I am a new DEI coordinator at the Recording Academy. I was previously working at the membership department, also at the Academy, and I interned at the museum. I graduated UCLA from 2020, in 2020, with music performance, piano performance, and music industry. And sorry, what was your question? Could you repeat that again?
It was, how did your music business courses and work prepare you for the music business in general and this year's changes?
I really like the UCLA music industry courses because, well, that was the main reason why I chose UCLA. And because one, it's in LA. So it's like, it has all the people. And I really like that UCLA courses focus a lot on projects. So it's a little bit less theory based and it's a lot more hands-on experience.
Excellent. Okay, we're gonna now hit the dulcet tones of JJ Farrell.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here, and thank you so much for having me. I'm JJ Farrell. I'm the manager of marketing, membership, and partnerships at the Music Business Association. I graduated from Belmont in 2019 with a music business major. And one of the things that Belmont kind of really brought home for me and that I kind of took into my career and how it's kind of shaped me is really having that foundation, but also being flexible and being able to understand that this is an industry that changes every minute and every second. And that means everything that's, you get the baseline of the foundation of, split sheets and different aspects that you can kind of take with you, whether it's legal or streaming or whatever the case may be, but also to know that everything can change tomorrow. So that's one of the things that Belmont kind of prepared me for as we head into this year coming up.
And everything did change. and you guys, and we'll talk more about that as we go. Edwina, sure. Can you share your journey?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Edwina. I actually graduated this past Saturday from CU Denver. I was in their recording arts program, but one thing I really appreciated about CU Denver is we were taking business classes and performance classes in addition to my recording arts classes. So I felt like it filled in a lot of gaps in my understanding about the industry as a whole.
Cool. Bradley, also known as Jelly. Am I pronouncing that totally wrong?
Almost. July. I'm Bradley Jones, also known as July. I went to CU Denver a little bit before Edwina graduated. I graduated May of 2019, so right before everything went to crap. I was a major in recording arts and I minored in music business. So a lot of my coursework was around like the archaic usage of boards and consoles and analog equipment. As far as my music business courses, that actually was, I feel like, my favorite part of my entire transcript. Took marketing with Storm, took concert promo and music business, a bunch of other classes I can't remember the names of, just the faces and names of the teachers. Some of it was archaic, but some of it was also very useful. And I'll pass it on.
And we'll talk about archaic and useful as we keep going here. Annie.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie James. I graduated from CU Denver with a degree in music business and vocal performance in May of 2018. I work now at Warner Music Group in sync licensing and license music for shows like America's Got Talent, Ellen, NBC programming, stuff like that. I think that my career at CU Denver really helped me learn how to fail, which has been really great preparation for working at a major. A lot of the projects that I worked on and many of my internships at CU Denver took me seriously as a young adult and, soon to be professional. And, those mistakes that you make as a student really help shape who you're going to be as a professional. And I think that the type of guidance that you get in those experiences is really important. So I'm lucky that I was taken seriously then.
Excellent. Noah, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. It is an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you again for having me. My name is Noah Levinson. I graduated from the Clive Davis Institute at New York University in the winter of 2018. Since then, I've been running my company, Levitate Events. We produce concerts and festivals that focus mostly on live performed, chill, vibey electronic music. And I also talent buy on behalf of Versa Entertainment, and we book artists on behalf of venues and festivals and corporate clients from around the world. I guess to answer the question, I really enjoyed that the Clive Davis program was super well-rounded. We could take courses anywhere from contracts and deal making to concert promotion to marketing, lots of marketing courses, artist management, production, engineering records, etc. And I think it provided a landscape for people who didn't just want to be musicians to really explore different facets in the music industry. And so, yeah, I thought it was a great way for me to kind of dive in headfirst into what I wanted to do. And as that kind of shaped up, they allowed me to kind of tailor my curriculum to be best for music production and events.
And Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I graduated from Drexel University last year in music industry, and I am the owner and founder of Skyline Music Group. We are an artist services company focusing mostly around label and artist management services, but we're trying to kind of change how music companies work with artists. And at my time at Drexel, I really appreciated kind of like what you were just saying, how well-rounded the program was. I was able to really take advantage of a lot of different smaller components of the music industry and learn about them and combine them into a company that I was starting, which kind of handles a lot of different things in the music industry. So having that really well-rounded approach to the curriculum was definitely really helpful to me.
Storm, we have a really well-rounded group here.
We do.
We've got folks who are entrepreneurs. We have folks who are with major organizations. We have folks in different walks of life. And we've got, 4 different schools that are part of this. So we're going to be asking sort of broad sweeping generalization questions that may pertain to some of your schools, not others, and some of your businesses, not others. So feel free to bat the ball around between all of us as conversations come up. Let me kick us off to what have you needed? What has changed for you in your work and challenges over the past year? what type of skills and things did you need to walk into what we've just lived through? Who wants to start off?
I can go ahead. I think one of the things that, as being a part of a trade association, dealing with a lot of different companies in a lot of different areas, and kind of seeing also the 27 schools that we have academic partners with, it's really been a test for many of us in order to see, okay, I'm going to use the P word, but pivot. What are the ways that, we had to readjust what we thought about within 2 seconds. And sometimes being at a trade association, we only have 8 members of our team that do everything. And so you really do have to really balance a lot of different aspects at the same time. And, some of those jobs you didn't sign up for, some of those roles you had to, kind of understand a little bit more and you had to learn on the fly. I think this has taught me more than anything into a job. Anything can change, just like I mentioned with flexibility, that you really have to take the all-in community approach into your role, and with your partners and with all the companies that you kind of work with and represent. So it's more on the interpersonal side, I think, for me than the actual work, with mental health and, all the different aspects that really came to light through all this. So I think that's probably one thing I had to learn over the past year. How to balance different hats.
Anyone else?
I can add on to that a little bit.
I'll go after you.
Okay. So this is a pretty obvious one, but the full shift to everything digital has definitely been challenging. When you think about it, taking a physical artist or a physical band and making their entire persona and their entire existence a digital existence has definitely been challenging from across the board, whether it's obvious live performances, live streams, but also smaller things like merchandising. We no longer buy bulk merchandise and take it on tour. Everything is print on demand. We're kind of creating digital spaces to sell merch, connect with fans, speak with them one-on-one, provide these performances, and it all has to integrate and tie into itself, which is exciting and cool, but it also brings up a lot of challenges because you can't really handle things the traditional way anymore. You can't just order 500 t-shirts and take them on tour. You need to think about, okay, where are those 500 t-shirts going to sit while we're not touring for a year, 2 years? So kind of taking an existence of an artist and trying to portray that in a fully digital sense and still connecting with fans and connecting with people that way has definitely been challenging, but a really interesting thing to be working on.
I totally agree. And I want to add on to both of you guys that honestly, just always plan for the worst. Always have a plan B, C, D, E, F, all the way to Z. Just the Grammy Awards this year happened. They have to move the date and they had to restructure the whole entire award show for it to be digital. And honestly, I saw them make so many changes before that. They were already thinking about it. And so it was just like a matter of time where we were just like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. We're going to go for like the worst plan that we came up with, like the worst, like what we didn't think of, not the worst plan, but like the worst thing that we thought would happen is happening. So we had to make the change immediately. So it's going to be thinking outside the box and honestly preparing for the worst.
Yeah, for sure.
Bradley, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've done a number of live events in person and also like speaking engagements, even a lot of teaching in person to youth, but the majority and everything I've done before even getting those opportunities, TED Talk and going to colleges and speaking, before I even got any of those opportunities, everything I did was digital. I have a YouTube channel, so I kind of knew everything ahead of time, but it definitely wasn't something I learned in school. It's something I just learned on my own time and was just ready for it. And I was actually ecstatic that I didn't have to leave my house because I'm an introvert. I'm done here. Who's next?
Very good. Anyone else?
To kind of add on to that, like I live and breathe live events, and so this past year was super challenging for me. And something that JJ said that like is something I've resonated a lot with over the past year is flexibility, right? Like we have our skills and we're so used to using them in the ways that we're used to, but being able to reapply them to other things over the past year has been like the only way that has worked for me. Like, so like when I focus on live events, I'm usually booking shows that are in real life. And the concept of like a live stream event is not new. You know, people have been live streaming their shows for years, but the concept of just having a live stream event was like so weird at first. But now it seems like so standard. And being able to flip your mindset on those kinds of things, whatever it is, has been like so helpful for me. And I'm sure anybody who's still in the music scene after this ridiculous year we've had probably feels something similar.
I can add a little bit too. I think that the thing that I've had to figure out this past year a lot is being creative in an administrative position. And, you know, that P word again, pivoting, half of my job pre-pandemic was to be the assistant to our vice president of sync licensing. So figuring out how to be a digital assistant when part of my job was to answer her phones and get her lunch and stuff like that, has really forced me to figure out, you know, how am I going to progress my career digitally when part of it is typically in an office? But that's also kind of the beauty of the last year personally, is that it's allowed me to progress my career a little bit earlier and faster than I ever really expected. So yeah, I think that, you know, being creative in any position, whether or not it's traditionally creative, it's definitely been important to figure out how to do.
If I could add one more comment real quick. I think I forgot to mention this in my intro, but I do sit on the board of this nonprofit called Music Minds Matter. And we felt like our organization was the perfect thing for musicians in the pandemic, because we were offering sort of these community events. But even though it might have been the perfect situation for the pandemic, learning how to market digitally and actually connect with people to the point where they would come to the meetups that were beneficial for who were attending was so tricky. And I think we're like approaching sort of this method that has finally started to work as things are opening up again. So it's been a weird balance that way.
Great observations. And no surprise, we're hearing the word pivot a few times here, and this probably won't be the end of it. What thinking now, focusing to curriculum, is there anything, any class, any skill, any topic that you feel wasn't available to you when you were an undergrad that might have prepared you better for the adventure you're on right now? Can anyone think of any of those?
It's not that it wasn't available to us, but in the Clive Davis program, it wasn't pushed to us that aside from learning how to deal with many facets of the music industry, that we also would need to learn the financial aspect of everything if we wanted to succeed as entrepreneurs. And I wish that I'd taken advantage of classes outside of the Clive program where I could have learned more accounting and just being better with finances in general.
I was going to say, can you say that louder in this recording that I can give to my current students? Anything else that you guys kind of wish that you had taken advantage of that was already there?
Honestly, I can delve into that because Belmont does have the ability, depending on your emphasis. So you have the major in music business, but you can emphasize in production or business, some other sides that you get an extra course in. There's almost 2 to 3 things I wish I took more advantage of. One was contract law, absolutely. Even for me personally, even if it's not an artist or a company that you're working for, to understand your own contract when you're going into a job, I think is even more crucial. As there are things to look out for that I luckily read my contract and was able to look out for. But 2 more that kind of I wish I took advantage of as one is we preach here at the association that students have the ability to create their own opportunities, and this industry has proven over the past year that company titles are not really what we kind of really hold on to ourselves for, but we want to create our own entity or to do a digital marketing agency or to do something on the side that allows us to have a side hustle while being at a company that can help us, kind of build our skill set a little bit more. So entrepreneurship or stuff like that is something I wish I took advantage of. And negotiation is probably the number one thing for me that I wish I had in college. Everything in life, no matter if it's personal or work, is a negotiation. And you're always selling yourself. Doesn't matter what situation you are. So those are three that kind of hit home for me.
Yeah, to build off of yours, actually, I wish there's a class like the art of speaking, like just it's not just negotiation, there's pitching, there's like what's that called? Networking. It's all everything that you do is, especially that's digital right now, that you're constantly talking to people. You need to be able to clearly voice your own opinions, and it's really hard to do that when you don't have any clue of what you're doing, especially when networking. Networking is something I didn't understand until I graduated. Until last year after college, I graduated and I was like, oh God, what am I gonna do now? Like, how do I reach out to people? Luckily, I had a mentor who just walked me through step by step of like some guidance. But before that, it was just people telling me, oh, you got a network, but how do you actually do that is the question. And I wish there was, a class that taught me how to put decks together and do a pitch with the deck, how to network, how to negotiate, because you're negotiating every day in your life. I'm a coordinator right now, and I'm sure Annie would agree. You're constantly scheduling for people, and that's part of negotiation. You're going to be like, sorry, this is the only time we can do for that. Can you do that? Can you make that work? That's part of negotiation too. So it's not just contracts. And that's something I wish I learned a lot more in school, because honestly, it was a lot of trial and error after I graduated. It was a lot of hitting people on LinkedIn and having rejections or just disappear like nothing. And that's something I wish I had more to learn in school.
Yeah, to speak to Amanda's point, I think that scheduling, I didn't realize that my assistant to the VP job would actually kind of entail being the assistant to the entire department. And so figuring out, how to schedule other people's meetings that also sort of pertain to my boss's schedule, they're not directly correlated, but they could be somehow similar, to make sure people's schedules are free when they should be, to fit her needs and stuff like that. And keeping those relationships without, making it kind of contentious. I think that coming into a department as myself, at least the youngest and the newest one, although 3 of my coworkers were also similar age, graduated at the same time, they started 6 to 7 months earlier. So, they kind of had a head start. And so figuring out how to, stand in your space and being bold enough to take lead where you need to, but also knowing how to take a step back and allowing people their egos or, just their need to feel like they are the ones who were there first. I think that that's important, because it's all about relationships. I did network a lot in college, but also similar to Amanda's point, I didn't necessarily have the experience of applying to a ton of positions and not hearing a single word, because Denver is such a tight-knit community that you'll at the very least hear something back, whether it's no or maybe next semester or whatever it may be. So it's all kinds of networking. I think that you can never have enough experience in college networking.
So let me shift gears just a second, though. So we have a question in the chat. which is near and dear to my own career development team at UCLA, in that how did you feel about music theory and songwriting curriculum? Because we actually, I won't talk politics around the chat. Sometimes it's an interesting question about the role of music theory. So did you guys take music theory and songwriting curriculum, and have you felt it added value to where you already are?
Personally, we had to take both. We had to take 2 music theory classes and 1 songwriting class. I do have a background in like piano and music theory, so I knew some of it already. I will say I think theory is way less important than songwriting. As an artist manager or a label, knowing what makes a song good and how to maybe offer a critique to an artist when they give you a first demo has been very valuable to me. So songwriting, I think, is definitely very important because that's a more broad song-focused idea rather than like, oh, maybe you should use like a 4 chord here instead of this, because really no artist wants to hear that. But if you're like, oh, I think that chorus can come back again, or something more songwriting related, I think is way more valuable to the business of music. But if you're an artist and trying to make it as an artist, I think theory is also very important to learn.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I was going to say, I'll second that. I think songwriting seems more relevant than theory. However, I have noticed as that song is being written, I do have this extra layer of comfortability. CU Denver made us, or for my major, I took 3 years of theory. So we finished with jazz theory. And it feels more of like this back of my mind thing that ends up being helpful later. So I've definitely still felt like the weight and importance of theory, even though songwriting on surface level seems more relevant.
I agree. And, Edwina and I did the same program. Granted, we have similar, or I guess different majors, although in the same program. I took vocal performance in addition to business. So I took a little bit more theory and songwriting than regular business majors would have needed to. And even in an administrative position, I do think that it's incredibly important because if I wanted to shift my career in any way towards a more creative aspect, those backgrounds would be so crucial to that job description, even if it's something like music supervisor. Granted, that also would entail, a lot of production, not a ton, but some production background and knowledge of music editing. And that, going back to the other question, that's one thing I wish I had focused on a little bit more, was paying attention in recording arts and actually knowing what's going on when you're editing. Because if I wanted to make that change right now, I don't think that would be possible.
At the Clive program, we were required to take 1 year, or I guess 1 songwriting course and also 1 music theory course. And like working pretty exclusively on the business side, albeit like, creative business or something. I wouldn't say I use it on a day-to-day basis, but I think it's so important, like being 1 to 2 degrees of separation away from musicians at almost all times, like being able to speak to them on their terms, or think about what they're doing in kind of an analytical sense, is so important. And I'm really glad I took the courses, but I wouldn't say that for what I do, I need them.
There's a question in the, oh, please go ahead.
My bad. I was going to say that I fell asleep almost every day in songwriting class, to be honest, even though I write a lot of songs. On the other hand, music theory classes, I did find them very, I can sell music theory to 1 million people in the form of a chord pack or a melody packer, and people could use it all over the world, but I can only sell lyrics to ideally 1 artist, unless someone does a cover, but that's a lot more, out of this world. So in terms of music theory, that definitely helped me more, although I wish I had a choice, or people had a choice in general, because a lot of people don't want to be there and they'll probably sleep like me.
And I'll add that I wasn't teaching that class, just FYI.
No, it's not your fault.
So I have a question in the chat, though. I want to come back to what other classes you may have slept through. But there was a question in the chat about did you get done in 4 years? And did anyone stay longer to take classes that they wanted or needed? And I might add to that, did you also add on other minors or other things to bolt on other things to your program? So actually, I'm not sure we're all on screen at the same time. Just let's go round robin. Did you get done in 4 years? And did you add anything else, or do you wish you did?
I got done in 4 years, but I did summer school one semester to make sure that I could graduate on time. And I added the double emphasis of vocal performance after taking my first year of audition track for music business, but it's not technically a double major, just double emphasis. So it's a few extra classes.
I finished in 4. I'm actually really different because if I went back and wanted to do my curriculum again, I actually would have done a major in marketing with a minor in PR. I believe having those skill sets can get you anywhere in life. And I kind of wish I did that. It's great to have that business background, but that stuff you can't really learn once you get into the real world unless you're doing it a lot.
Yeah, I finished in 4 years. Drexel's on that weird quarter system. So I finished all my requirements a quarter early besides like my final senior project. But I filled my last quarter with extra stuff like entrepreneurship classes and contract classes in different fields, so I could kind of get some of the things that we were discussing before. But yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Sorry.
I also finished in 4 years, but in addition to my recording arts major, I actually added a minor in computer science. Our only female faculty in the recording arts program actually suggested it to me because there's a lot of conceptual parallels between the two, and it felt like a good challenge for me to try while in college and while in this period of learning in my life. And I always used to make the joke, it felt very Hannah Montana, like jumping back from music classes to like coding classes. But it was an awesome experience. It really like honed in on my critical thinking skills and learning how to break these bigger problems into smaller problems. And just, I'm really grateful I did that.
I remembered my last thing. Drexel has a baked in minor in business administration as well. So I finished with that as well.
I finished in 3.5 years. I used the last, what would have been the last semester to just also take extra courses. I took a piano lesson, which is cool. But I also minored in adolescent psychology.
I did finish in 4 years. I wanted to add another emphasis, which would have been music business, to my recording arts major, but I was it would have added another semester, and I was already miserable after the first 4 years, so I decided not to do it.
I graduated in 4 years. I majored in piano performance and then added music industry minor. My second year, I was also thinking about double majoring in communications, but it couldn't fit into my program if I wanted to do an internship. Because for any performance majors, there's way too many concerts, rehearsals, lessons to deal with to fit, a big chunk, to free up a chunk of your schedule to fit into internships. So that didn't work.
Let me bridge from a question in the chat a little broader. So you guys now are just starting a few years in. Do you anticipate going back to school, going back for training? Have you gone back for training? Are there things that you'd like to add as additional arrows in your quiver in terms of knowledge, certification, or you're just done with school, never going back?
At Drexel, we had the option to add a year on for like a 5-year MBA program. I applied for that when I got into Drexel, and I got into it, but I decided against doing it, mostly because the longer I started working in music, I realized that the ultimate degree at the end isn't really what matters in the music industry. It's about what you're doing while you're at school, what you're learning, and the experience you're gaining. Any label or company that's hiring in the music industry doesn't care what your degree is. One of my professors majored in medieval history, and he's like at Red Light Management and has worked at Sony. Like, nobody cares about that. They care about what you can do in music. So kind of adding on that Drexel money and that MBA didn't really seem too valuable for me, because I took the business classes that I wanted to take, and I got that experience. And I think working more on the experience outside of school is more valuable than that degree itself. So long answer, but I don't think I will be going back.
I'm along the same lines. I kind of take the approach that Annie kind of mentioned in the beginning of, failing and learning that. And I personally believe that you can learn 10 times more by having a master's degree and being in the business. That's what I do tell students is, having a master's, nobody that I know of or any HR reps that I've had talks with believe that's really the thing. And honestly, I believe the industry is 90% hang, 10% skills, once you're kind of starting out. So I take that approach of I think failing when you're actually in the industry or trying to do it on your own almost serves as that master degree in a way. But that's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, I think that unless you're...
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I think that unless you want to do like law, like, be a lawyer and do something that actually literally requires that you have a certification or degree, I don't know how necessary it is. To speak to both JJ and Chris's points, I absolutely think that, full-on experience in the industry is a lot more applicable than, a class in what that focus might be. I will say that I personally, in my own experience, I don't know if it's industry-wide, I think that I'm seeing a lot more of the younger generations that are getting hired. They do have a degree that's more applicable to entertainment industry or something along those lines, whether it's an actual major or a minor or a, focus or a certificate. I'm not seeing like general business as much as I am seeing like entertainment or music marketing or something like that. Granted, that's very specific to music. If you wanted to do like something at a network that was all inclusive, that's a little bit different. But yeah, I don't see myself going back to school unless I had $1 trillion and could just pay for it, no problem, and thought it would be fun. I don't see myself going back.
The challenge that I faced, especially like in my junior and senior years in school, were that I enjoyed being in the classes, but I was so eager to get out into the scene and work. And there became this time where like I was actually starting to work pretty hard, and school started to become the thing that was like, oh, like that's the burden now because I have to work, but I also have to go to class. And like that, nowadays, like I work so hard and so much that I don't know if I could go back. But I think this last year has been such a huge testament to like online learning. And I'd love to explore opportunities maybe in the future to bolster my understanding in marketing or like I mentioned before, finances and things like that. But I don't know if I'd need to go back to an actual school or program for that, because I think now the online learning community has become so much bigger than what it used to be. Not saying that the music industry programs at universities around the world aren't important. I think they have a very special and important place. But for the things that I'd want to go back and focus on, I don't know if I'd need to go back to an actual college for that.
Digital learning is so important. I actually learned so much out of like just from YouTube videos and just Googling. But I almost got another degree. I don't know if any of you guys are in the same boat, but I graduated in the middle of the pandemic. Well, I graduated almost like earlier in the pandemic, and I couldn't find a job. And so I almost went to USC for their music business master's program. And I thought about it. I talked to so many people, and I was like, I feel like experience outweighs education in our field, especially because even just from interviewing for like jobs and internships, I feel like people always ask you about your jobs more than like what you've experienced, more than what you got in at school. So I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to pay so much money and not get like that much in return, then maybe it's better to just stick it out and find a job and, start building my experience. Because again, I forgot who said that, but yeah, experience kind of is your master's in this field.
And just to add on to what Annie said earlier about, entertainment, degrees and all that kind of getting the roles, which I totally agree with. It lends back to the to the conversation of I see those a lot, but it's also because they tend to have the internship experience behind that. So that's kind of the other thing that plays a major portion into those roles is it the degree, or is it the degree that you land the internship, then the internship lands you? And so that's where I think, and maybe Annie will attest to it too.
Yeah.
But that's what I see.
No, I agree. And I think to clarify, like it's less about just seeing the degree and being like, oh, they're more qualified than just business, like whatever. I think it's more about intention of this is the industry I want to go in rather than, I'm studying business or whatever it may be, and I'll get a job in anything. I think people who are hiring managers and recruiters now are like the kid who wants to be in the music industry versus the kid who's just like, I want a job. Who do we want at our company? Like, who do we want working with these artists or working on these shows? It's about passion. And again, that internship experience, that's what leads you to that path.
Bradley, you started with something earlier. Did we run past it?
July?
Sorry. I agree with Noah and Amanda. I tend to, anything that I've ever thought about going back to college for, I found in a course, whether that was Cadenza or Skillshare or Linda. If there was a college that had an affordable course program like that cheap, then maybe, I guess technically I'd be back in college, but nope.
We hear you. How would you say the business has changed since you graduated? Now that you're living this adventure, how is it so different?
Well, I graduated early pandemic, so I think people are starting to figure the digital aspect out now that we're all going back. But it took a really long time to kind of figure that out. I think live streams specifically are so important, but there's still that space for improvement there. Nobody's really figured it out fully. And it's funny that we've kind of come and passed through this time when that was the most important thing to be figured out. But I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis on that in the future. Artists who made their money touring and felt like they had to have now found different ways to make money, and different strategies to grow their careers. So touring's going to come back and there's going to be a big boom in the next year or so. But I think the way artists are approaching their traditional careers is really changing, because there's less emphasis on being out on the road. People have figured out you can survive and you can thrive on TikTok. You can thrive on these digital spaces and grow your career that way. And you don't need to pay $50,000 to go out on the road for a couple months. So yeah, it's definitely changing just the way artists are approaching making their music, playing their music, and growing their careers.
I kind of want to, because I know some others will touch on the really business aspect. I really want to touch on the us as a human being aspect, because I think it's actually something that one, everybody, I'm glad people care about it and want to get into it now, but two, was very underserved for years. And now I truly do believe there are more opportunities, whether it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, or whether it's mental health. I think we can't overlook everything that's happened over this past year and what organizations have come up, like Music Minds Matter. I followed them, so I can attest to that side. But that's why at the association we've moved into that. We've had an event called Next Gen U, and it's not. It was more about having the interpersonal mental health burnout, networking. But it's more about you as a human being rather than the industry is going to change every second. and a lot of people bring up points about that, but we can't as a community and as especially bridging academia with the industry, can't lose sight of that. It's something that needs to be built upon, and it continually is, which is exciting. But that's the biggest change personally for me in the industry, minus the music tech and live streaming and figuring everything out. It's really about, okay, how can we all get in this together as one community and lift each other up in more ways than we ever have.
We have a couple of questions in the chat that are around personality traits and skills, which is possibly different than courses. What arrows are in your quiver as to the skills and personality traits that you're walking into? One of the questions actually is about success. We could have an hour conversation on personalities, traits, and success. But for you personally, what has been kind of the experience type skills and traits that you have brought into what you're doing?
Having thick skin. After working, I realized people are not going to be as nice as professors. Professors are just always just like, that's wonderful, just keep working on that. But when you're in the workplace, it's like, no, that's not what we want. Like, that's not going to happen. And you just got to be able to mentally process those rejections, those no's, those ghostings, everything. It just really be able to reach out to people, knowing the fact that they might not like what you do, they might not like what you have to offer, and be okay with that and just keep moving on.
I think this semester specifically, I started trying to private message people on Zoom calls, being like, "Hi, I'm Edwina. I'm really interested in what we're talking about. Would love to connect outside." And it's ended up setting up close to 20 different Zoom calls this past semester of me just really putting myself out there and shaking from my end of the Zoom call, but being brave on the actual camera. But yeah, I've never had to do that before. And it's even helped me connect a lot more with my peers too. I've been in some classes with people for 4 years, and I knew they were doing music, but it was such a surface level understanding of what they were curious about and how we both had similarities in it. And that's been awesome to get to actually connect with them before we graduate.
It's scary at first, but you get used to it.
I think that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that one thing that I've really had to kind of challenge myself and my own personality with this last year is being bolder about, taking myself seriously and not, we see it everywhere, especially on social media and all these TikTok accounts and stuff like that, but not putting maybe or kind of or sort of in front of all of our emails, especially as women. I think, we do that all the time, is kind of undercutting ourselves. And so that's one thing that I've really had to challenge my own personality with this last year, is not saying, is it okay if I am more stern with, these other people who should take me more seriously because I should take myself more seriously. So I think that that's one thing that leads to more success, is like not undercutting yourself a lot.
Yeah, kind of
Chris?
similar to that. I've found in the past couple of years the power of simply asking for things. The music community is very open to helping each other out. I've found so many people that I've taken on as mentors that just genuinely want to help and see other people have success in music. And for a long time, it's scary to ask for things, but something as simple as like, hey, do you know somebody here that you can put me in touch with? 9 times out of 10, they'll either say, no, I don't know anybody, or they will give you a list of people that you can contact and an introduction. And it makes your life a million times easier just by asking a simple question. And not being afraid to get help to accomplish something. So that is, it's definitely a trait that takes time to get comfortable with, but once you kind of get there, it makes life a lot easier.
And just one quick add on that, being the most appreciative person in an email or any conversation you have has gone me so far in that. I end every email with a thank you or appreciate everything, and it gets me in the door every time. That's a lost art.
I'm going to take you back to class time a couple of years ago, and we're looking at the clock, and it's about to run out on us. We want to get one last question in, and we'll throw this out for some real quick responses if you could. But if you were to take over your program, and now looking at the new environment ahead, is there anything that you would add, any topic or focus that as we look at the new business that you would change?
I would make it required to learn things about digital marketing.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
more
right.
focus on digital tech, and also a lot more emphasis on copyright, sound exchange, and PROs.
All right. Anyone else?
I would encourage all of the students to reach out past what their community, their school is in, making sure that they're making those connections and networking outside of, in my case, Denver or wherever. So if they want to move, they can.
Okay. If they want to pivot, as we say. Yes. Anyone else?
I would say building the foundations that will get you through, your first couple years of work. So building pitches, negotiating, things like that.
All right. Okay. So some great answers there. And we are running out of time, but thank you, all of you panelists, for being here, and congratulations on your adventures. Thank you, Gigi, my partner in crime on this. And thank you, Mia, for having us.
And
we
check
really
out
appreciate
amplifymusic.org.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.